The largest reservoir in the U.S. is drying up, shrinking water supplies in the West. So what happens when a giant man-made lake gets so dramatically unmade? Lake Mead was formed following the construction of the Hoover Dam on the Colorado River in 1935. According to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the government agency that manages power and water in the West, it holds more water than any reservoir in the United States. It's also one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. Essentially a flooded canyon, the 229 square mile lake snakes for 115 miles through the deserts of Arizona and Nevada. It seems vast and never-ending, an inland sea of epic proportions that supplies water and electricity to millions of homes. But Lake Mead reached its highest volume in the summer of 1983 and has been shrinking ever since. This historic high point, 1,226 feet, is easily referenced by the white bathtub ring of minerals extending up the rock walls bordering the lake, left behind when the water level dropped. According to Reuters, the top of the ring now towers 157 feet above the current surface of the lake. This is equivalent to the Statue of Liberty plus an additional 6 feet. In 2021, the lake's surface elevation plunged to around 1,067 feet, prompting the Bureau of Reclamation to declare a water shortage for the first time in history. Just 1 year later, in July 2022, Lake Mead's water level fell to around 1,040 feet.
Mother Nature is going to have to come to the rescue, or we're going to have to really look at some different ways at how we use water.
According to CNN, the lake is now at just 27% of its capacity, its lowest volume since it was filled in the 1930s. With the American West now 22 years into a mega drought, many people are wondering what would happen if Lake Mead dried up completely. Well, it wouldn't be good. The Lake Mead National Recreation Area was created by the U.S. Congress in 1964, becoming the first nationally designated area of its kind in the country. It is also the largest, occupying 1.5 million acres, an area bigger than the state of Delaware. Featuring desert wilderness, canyons, and 2 lakes, Lake Mead National Recreation Area is a natural wonderland. According to Travel Awaits, 7.6 million people visited the area in 2021. In fact, it was the 5th most visited national park in the U.S., and Lake Mead is its centerpiece. Surrounded by desert in all directions, the giant lake offers a cool respite from the sweltering heat. Water-related activities like boating, fishing, and swimming are the area's main attractions. But enjoying water recreation at Lake Mead is already a challenge. According to the Arizona Republic, extending boat launches to keep them open is a constant effort, as most are no longer underwater. Several of its marinas have already relocated to deeper water, and some have closed down permanently. Boaters and swimmers must also be wary of constantly changing terrain, as formerly deep areas are now shallow. As the water levels continue to drop, such problems will increase until there is no water left to enjoy at all. And without water, the oasis would evaporate into the surrounding desert like a mirage.
It's extremely sad, to say the least. It's kind of tragic.
According to CNN, the Colorado River system, which includes Lake Mead, supplies water to 40 million people in 7 western states. Lake Mead alone brings water to 25 million people living in Nevada, Arizona, California, and parts of Mexico. California has the oldest rights to the lake and therefore gets first dibs. In times of water shortage, the federal government activates a plan in which water use is dialed back in tiers, depending on Lake Mead's water levels. In January 2022, with water levels at 1,066 feet, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation issued its first water shortage declaration, and Tier 1 water cutbacks were put into effect. This meant Arizona had to reduce its water use by 18%, Nevada by 7%, and Mexico by 5%. Since then, the lake has already fallen below the 1,050-foot cutoff, meaning Tier 2 cuts will be initiated soon, further reducing Arizona and Nevada allotments. A Tier 3 shortage, in which lake levels drop to 1,038 feet, is expected to happen by July 2023. At that point, California would begin losing water too. There is no Tier 4. John Insminger, the general manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority, told USA Today, "We're 150 feet from 25 million Americans losing access to Colorado River water." No one is more concerned about Lake Mead's plummeting water levels than Sin City. Las Vegas relies on Lake Mead for a shocking 90% of its water, per the National Park Service. Historically, water was pulled from the lake and transferred to Las Vegas through a large intake pipe installed in 1971. But as the lake level dropped, the pipe was rendered inoperable. A new pipe was fitted deeper in the lake in 2000, only to meet the same fate. Desperation led to a more involved solution. In 2015, construction on a 3-mile tunnel 600 feet below the lake's bottom was completed. Called the third straw, the tunnel allows water to be pulled from the very bottom of the lake.
The construction of this third intake and eventually a new pumping station will help secure Southern Nevada's access to its water resources in Lake Mead.
If Lake Mead were to dry up or just drop to a surface elevation of 895 feet, Las Vegas would be in dire straits. The city knows this and has taken action. Despite its population growing by 750,000 since 2002, the city has managed to use 26% less water by eliminating lawns, adhering to watering schedules, and harvesting gray water, which is processed and returned to Lake Mead. Even the famous Bellagio hotel fountains use a mix of a private well and recycled water. John Insminger told CBS News, "For having a reputation as a city of excess, we're actually one of the most water-efficient cities in the world."
Everything we use indoors is recycled. If it hits a drain in Las Vegas, we clean it, we put it back into Lake Mead.
Swimming pools and green lawns have become a staple of southwestern cities like Phoenix, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. But this won't be sustainable for much longer. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, as much as 60% of residential water is used outdoors for irrigating lawns, watering gardens, and filling pools. In fact, keeping a thirsty 1,000 square foot lawn alive can use as much as 330 gallons of water per irrigation session. Meanwhile, the average backyard swimming pool requires around 18,000 gallons of water to fill and can lose thousands of gallons each month to evaporation. Right now, water conservation efforts are left up to the individual in most areas, with a few cities like Mesa, Arizona offering incentives to replace lawns with native plants. But if Lake Mead were to dry up, water restrictions would become stricter, and such luxuries could be banned altogether. Already, many southwestern cities have placed restrictions on outdoor water use, per a 2010 study from the National Academy of Sciences. In addition to supplying water to many people in the Southwest, Lake Mead is also a key component of one of the largest hydroelectric power plants in the United States. Hoover Dam normally supplies electricity to about 1 million people in Arizona, Nevada, and Southern California. Water from Lake Mead must travel through the dam's 17 turbines to produce power, but lately there has been less water flowing due to the lake's low levels. The dam is already operating at a reduced capacity, producing 33% less electricity, according to a report from 8 News Now. If the lake level drops to 950 feet, the dam's older turbines will begin to struggle, and according to the Las Vegas Sun, if it drops to 895 feet, it reaches a state called dead pool, where Hoover Dam can no longer produce hydroelectric power or move water downstream. If Lake Mead reaches dead pool and Hoover Dam powers down, Arizona, Nevada, and Los Angeles would be hit the hardest, according to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. And the negative effects probably wouldn't stop there. If Glen Canyon Dam, a similarly sized dam on the Colorado River, were to fail, not only would the cost of electricity in impacted areas skyrocket, but the whole power grid could be disrupted, especially if it happened in summer. According to The Guardian, a shocking 75% of the water taken from Lake Mead goes toward irrigating crops like alfalfa and hay, which are used to produce cattle feed. Under Tier 1 restrictions, which primarily impact the agricultural industry, Arizona farmers are already working with 60% less water in the desert, according to Modern Farmer.
If we don't have irrigation water, we can't farm.
As a result, up to 40% of Arizona's farmland may lay fallow, meaning the state's main crops, alfalfa, hay, and cotton, are not being produced at the usual rate. The ramifications of this reach further than you might think. Cattle feed prices will increase due to scarcity, which will in turn cause the prices of beef and dairy products to increase. As the University of Arizona notes, Yuma, Arizona is also the nation's main grower of winter greens like kale, spinach, and romaine lettuce, so you can expect to pay more for those too. With Tier 2 and Tier 3 water cutbacks looming on the horizon, interruptions to the nation's food supply will only get worse. Soon, California, which produces 2/3 of the United States' fruits and nuts and 1/3 of its vegetables, will be impacted. California has already started removing almond trees, which require a lot of water to grow. If Lake Mead's water supply is exhausted, such shortages and high prices will become the norm for everyone in the U.S. As Lake Mead's water level drops, so does its water quality. According to the National Park Service, contaminants from the newly exposed shorelines are re-entering warm, shallow areas and becoming more concentrated. And this is just the beginning of what could happen if the lake keeps drying up. In the desert of California lies another man-made lake condemned to death, the Salton Sea. As CNBC notes, it was once a thriving recreational area in the mid-1900s. But as the drought took hold, things went horribly wrong. Salt and toxins from years of agricultural runoff began to concentrate in the water as the majority of the lake evaporated, becoming too caustic to support an aquatic ecosystem. Businesses, fish and birds alike went belly up. Today, it is a wasteland.
And less than an hour away from Palm Springs.
Exactly. Some of the richest areas in California, we're just in their backyard.
We can expect to see something similar happen if Lake Mead dries up. Real estate in the lakeside communities of Boulder City, Meadview, and Henderson would likely plummet. Locals who once enjoyed a beautiful lake in their backyard and relied on tourism for income would be faced with a cruel choice: leave or stay in the mess. The Lake Mead National Recreation Area is home to 387 species of native animals, 10 of which are threatened with extinction, according to the National Park Service. Per the National Audubon Society, it is also designated as an important bird area. 320 different bird species have been documented in Lake Mead and its surrounding environments, including the endangered southwestern willow flycatcher. According to a 2011 study published in Lake and Reservoir Management, the razorback sucker, a critically endangered freshwater fish once common in the Colorado River Basin, has maintained a population in Lake Mead since the 1970s, one of the last breeding populations of the species. The relict leopard frog, previously thought to be extinct, only survives in a few springs within the Lake Mead National Recreation Area. Without the lake and its springs, this species would certainly go extinct. One way or another, a lack of water in the Southwest would likely prompt people to move. In addition to the possible loss of luxury and jobs, prices for water and power would likely skyrocket. This could be enough to trigger a mass migration out of the Southwest. And it wouldn't be the first time in American history that drought caused such an event. In the 1930s, extreme drought caused the Dust Bowl in the Great Plains region, leaving many Americans without water, money, or prospects. 2.5 million people had moved out of the Plains states by 1940. It is currently the largest migration in U.S. history. Per the World Economic Forum, water shortages and climate change create more refugees than we realize. After all, a person can only live 3 days without water, and they also cannot grow food without it. It's really quite simple. Water is essential for life, and when it's in short supply, people will travel to find it.